All right. Well, there you go. With that being said, we now turn it over to Josh.
Nope. Bone Thugs
Oh,
is next.
oh, it's me, Bone Thugs. That's right. I forgot. At first, I thought I was doing Alanis Morissette, but Bone Thugs.
Oh, Jesus.
All right.
No, I
Well,
definitely did a lot more set.
Yeah, gotcha. No worries. It's okay. I got it right there. So Bone Thugs are well. Let's first start with the two tracks that we're gonna cover. I went. The first one's easy. It was gonna be first of the month because I love that one. And the second one, I tortured myself trying to figure out what I was gonna do, and I've decided that I'm gonna do Buddha Lovers as the second track.
Smoke the Buddha.
So there were many choices, but I went with Buddha Lovers. Matt, run the numbers for me, man.
E 1999 Eternal comes in at number 1080 in the 1990s on Best Ever Albums, number 119 in 1995, number 6469 of all time. It is Bone Thugs and Harmony's highest rated album on Best Ever Albums. And Bone Thugs are ranked number 3,413 of overall artist rankings on Best Ever Albums.
Well, guys, how many of the 5 members of Bone Thugs and Harmony can you name? Let's see how well you guys do.
I thought there were 4.
There are technically 5.
There's 4 on the album.
There's
On
technically
the album.
5.
Oh, man.
We'll get into it, but how many of the 5 members who have been in
0.
Bone? Really? You can't name any of them?
I
You
didn't
got
know.
Crazy Bone?
Yep.
Busy
Crazy Bone?
Don't you remember in Thuggish Ruggish Bone it goes through all of them?
Nope.
So, you said
Yeah.
Crazy and Busy. Yep. Mhm.
We've got who else?
And
Wishbone.
we've got, yep. Lazy and crazy.
Oh, Lazy Bone, yeah.
Dong Bone? Is there a Dong
Crazy.
Bone on here?
Lazy's in the house. No,
Not Mr.
Flesh and
Ouija.
Bone. Flesh and Bone is the 5th
okay.
member of Bone Thugs and Harmony. From the streets of Cleveland,
Ohio.
Ohio. Yes.
I picked
as
up
they
on
mentioned.
that.
Are they the most famous Cleveland band that we've talked about?
Oh, no. There's other famous musical acts from Cleveland. The Rock and Roll Hall of Fame's from Cleveland, too. We'll get into that. But
They're not a band.
most famous Cleveland, well, I'm just saying, there's a lot. Most famous Cleveland rappers, I'll give you that. So
Oh, yeah.
we'll go in, after we did Nebraska acts, we'll go into Cleveland acts later. But I got a bio to give, guys. So they were formed in Cleveland, Ohio in 1991. The group was originally called the Band-Aid Boys. So Charlie Scruggs Jr., okay, we'll go into who that is. He joins the trio of Crazy Bone, Lazy Bone, and Busy Bone, and he was Wishbone. So there's an existing trio, Crazy, Lazy, and Busy, and then Wish joins them. And that group of 4 recorded an album titled Faces of Death. I'm certain that was probably styled off of that like videotape where people died that I could never bring myself to watch, but it was a
Wasn't
cult
real,
classic and
but yeah.
right in like video stores back in the day. Yeah, okay, that's good for me to know, Josh, that was
Yeah.
not a real thing. I always wondered how you could sell a snuff film in like
Right.
real
It
life.
was marketed as that, and then there was no internet
it was
then. So.
it was always on the same thing that like various soft porns and early UFCs, which basically were like violent soft porn, were on. So like it was
Blair Witch
all
wasn't a
various-
real witch either. That was made up.
They didn't really.
all variations of like like the equivalent of what like porn is in their genre, right? Like violence porn or death porn or different stuff like that, like in that shelf that was hidden somewhere. Anyway, so the Faces of Death comes up under the name Bone Enterprise with the S in prize as a $sign. So that was exactly as you'd expect, which is awesome. The album was recorded in, they had a mentor by the name of Kermit Henderson. It was recorded in his studio and released on the indie label Stony Brook in 1993. And interestingly enough, they basically began to just cold call record company executives, which always cracks me up when I hear that bands do that, like what that call would be like. So they're just calling these different places, and they are willing to audition over the phone to anybody who would listen to them, which from what we know about Bone Thugs and Harmony, you can see why they would want to do that, right? It would allow them to do the harmony part of it. Yep. Now, this is, to me, somewhat similar, maybe not the calling record companies, but similar to like Boys to Men. If you remember, they just went backstage and just started singing for like BBD, and they're like, "You're pretty good. We're going to sign you." Yep. Well, what happened was they got a promise from Eazy-E to call them back. but he never did. So they were a little bit bummed, but they were encouraged at least to go seek him out because he did say he'd call them back. They got together money for one-way bus tickets to LA.
Wow.
And they got on Greyhound and they went and they spent 4 months on the streets of LA,
Jeez.
basically putting in calls, hoping to run across him. And then, as the story goes, they couldn't find him, but then they found out he was on the way to Cleveland for a show. So they got back to Cleveland, and somehow there's a story about a marketer and a promoter who kind of introduced them to Eazy-E at the concert that he promoted, and they auditioned for him in his dressing room. And as the story goes, Crazy performed his verse of Flow Motion from the Faces of Death album, and Eazy was impressed by it. The group then harmonized together, and Bone Enterprise traveled back to LA after the Cleveland show where they signed the record deal, and Eazy decided to name them Bone Thugs and Harmony. Or Thugs and Harmony, but they wanted to keep Bone. So the compromise was the Eazy-E part, Thugs and Harmony, was combined with Bone, and that's why one of the oddest names in all of like hip hop, Bone Thugs and Harmony. That's how that was brought in, and they were signed to Ruthless Records. This is when I would come across them because a marketer for Ruthless Records was handing out singles in Trenton, New Jersey when I was there in the early summer of 1994, which was about a month before Creepin' on a Come Up came out. And it just so happened that single was Thuggish Ruggish Bone that we put in and probably listened to about 9,000 times that summer. But anyway, apparently this was the thing that was going on. There was promotion, and Creepin' on a Come Up becomes a very big hit, especially in the Midwest. I am decidedly not from the Midwest, but it got out to me. It actually got to number 12 on the Billboard Top 200 list album, which was considered pretty remarkable because it came out of nowhere. And number 2 on the hip hop albums chart. Thuggish Ruggish Bone also peaked at number 20 on the Billboard Hot 100, which is not something I would have thought. The sort of what started happening was that the album first only appealed to like gangster rap fans, but then people in the mainstream just really started to connect with it. And the beats on the album were from DJ Yella, Rhythm with a U in the rhythm, D, and Kenny McLeod, and also DJ Unique. And that would become important because DJ Unique is the person who produced pretty much all the beats on E1999 Eternal. So Eazy-E becomes their mentor. He's their executive producer. He's teaching them about business. So he kind of like looks at himself as sort of like, their mentor to teach them about the business. But unfortunately, as we've mentioned before, he did die pretty suddenly and unexpectedly from AIDS-related pneumonia. And kind of Bone Thugs and Harmony thought that they were adrift at that point. They didn't know what to do. But they went back in the studio, and E1999 was the result of that next trip into the studio that was pretty quickly after their first album. There was only about a year between, 13 months to be exact, between the two albums. The album was an unexpected huge hit. The album sold 307,000 copies in its first week, and it became the number one album in the country in its debut, and it ended up eventually selling 4 million copies in the US, and it was nominated for Best Rap Album, but lost at the 1996 Grammy Awards to Poverty's Paradise by Naughty by Nature. And there's more I can get into there, but pretty much that takes us to where this album was. Bone Thugs and Harmony, one of the unexpected success stories in all of 90s hip-hop. Matt, what'd you think of this one?
This was not my favorite, I will say. I think I was just... First of all, I say I appreciate the uniqueness of this because it's definitely a different sound in hip hop. The vocal styles, they are singing here more than pretty much anybody we've heard in rap. Like they're rap singing kind of. There are harmonies. I guess I was thinking that there was going to be more harmonies or like more pronounced harmonies. A lot of it seems to be just the similar notes that aren't deviating too much, but the vocal, like the tracking makes it seem like you can pick out the different parts, but it also doesn't stand out as being like this like full blown harmony that we've kind of heard in the past. But still, for rap, it's pretty, it's pretty unique and more of a singing style. Honestly, guys, I found their style of rapping very wearying. Like it was not for me. The whole, just like throughout the album, it just kind of all blended together, and I could not get past just the styling of rap that they were doing. It's really fast, right? Like they're clearly, they're clearly talented, and like, and throwing these things that are kind of just like flowing off their tongue very quickly. That it seems very difficult to do that. But it was just, I don't know, man. I listened to it once through. It's a long album. It's like, it's an hour and 10 minutes almost. And it kind of just, it was kind of a tiring listen for me, to be honest. The beats were decent. I'm not a huge fan. I was thinking this is actually a good time of year to be listening to this, because it's got like this spooky Halloween quality to it. And then I see here it's a part of a subgenre called horrorcore, so it's kind of like got this creepy element there, which again, another unique styling for here, but again, it didn't really resonate with me. It's not, I didn't find the beats here to be as catchy as some of the other ones that we've done, or, kind of, I know you guys talked about, Mobb Deep last week, like the beats there, it's very different, but this one's just not, it just didn't resonate with me, to be honest. I know I might be in the minority on this. I don't have a whole lot to say because I really didn't get through this too much. It's not really, I tried to I thought I was going to like it more too, because I'm like, oh, it's cool. It's going to be a bunch of harmonies and different singing elements and stuff, but it just didn't connect with me. And I just found myself getting tired of the styling. Maybe a song here or there on a mix would be okay. I like Crossroads, like some of the songs. I was
Crossroads,
okay.
Right?
What's that?
You knew Crossroads.
I knew Crossroads
everywhere.
Yes.
I feel like.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, but I remember that. I'm like, I kind of like that song,
Yeah.
right?
I feel like First of the Month was everywhere too.
First of the Month was good too.
At least
yeah.
in my world.
Yeah. I don't remember hearing that, but that one that stood out a little bit here. But some parts of some songs, but yeah, as an overall album for an hour and 10 minutes of this, it wasn't for me. I am thumbs down, unfortunately, on the Bone Thugs.
Surprising take from Matt.
Yep.
Well, I liked it more than Matt did. I liked it a lot at times. I agree with you. I think it is too long. And as a result, I feel like it compressed in my mind at points to where I kind of lost what I liked about it from track to track, or what I liked about certain things in track to track. I really like their unique delivery and their harmonizing. They're like a rapping barbershop quartet, which I find really fun and appealing. I feel like I'm glad you picked Buddha Lovers, John, because that song is like, it's almost like, it's practically an R&B song that they're just like rapping to. And I like the rapid fire.
But the significant other is Buddha.
Yeah, exactly. I like the rapid fire delivery. I still don't, I was reading along to it, the lyrics at times, and they are just really fast. It's like hard to understand, but I don't know. I always like Crossroads. I remember that was one of the music videos I do remember for some reason. And, I like the production on this as well. Something like the title track or the second track, E1999, has like this interesting like pager sound, or like old mobile phone, like Nokia sound or something in it. Eternal has like a little flute part that I found interesting. Mr. Bill Collector has like this like recognizable kind of like Asian theme, generic Asian theme that's pretty like seems to be used a lot. I couldn't find out what like exactly that was, but I like they had certainly have the talent. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. I like when they rap a cappella, like on Me Killa. That's kind of like an interlude track. And they also kind of there's like a cohesion to this album because they sing lines or tracks that reference previous songs. Like on No Shorts, No Losses, they say a line that's a reference to, I think, Land of the Heartless or something earlier in the album. They do that a couple times, I noticed too when I listened.
Well, there's even callbacks to tracks from the first album.
Yeah.
Like Mr. Ouija 2.
Yes.
There's a
that makes
Mr. Ouija 1 on the first. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
They're covering all the themes of gangster rap, right? They got crime, they've got drugs, they've got gun sounds like in Mr. Ouija 2. I thought that was interesting. And I think so it's hard because when I was listening to the songs, I like really liked the choruses, but now I can't like remember any of the choruses, and I think that's a testament to the length of the album and maybe kind of the similarity of the songs. But I really liked even going down to like Mo Murder, which is the last track. I really like that song. I found myself singing along. First of the Month is a great track. I had not heard that before, but I was definitely like singing along to that on the chorus and stuff. And I don't know. I thought it was a solid rap album. I like that Bone Thugs is doing something different than a lot of the rap that we heard. That kind of sets them apart. And I like when they collab with Phil Collins later on. So thumbs up for me.
Oh, they
It's
do
good.
Take Me Home, don't they?
Exactly.
Is that what it is?
Yep.
I forgot about that.
Well, I've listened to this album like a jillion times in my. It's shocking to me that you guys don't have constant experience with this, because this is probably in my top 10 most listened to albums of the 90s. It just was.
Is it,
just was.
Is it really shocking that I haven't listened to this album a bajillion times?
No, I mean, it reinforces to me that we had very different experiences growing up.
Yeah.
Yes, and it just was one of these albums that I would just show up at people I knew's houses, or like I'd be introduced to somebody, and like in the background would be like E1999 Eternal, and even when I got to college, like 3 years after this album was there, people would still be playing like E1999 Eternal at different times. And like this album is so familiar to me that actually I like have the cadences of like where the songs are hitting at different times. Like, just the one thing that always stands out to me about this album is that so many Bone Thugs and Harmony's songs, and I know what you're saying, Matt, that their flow is like they do the same thing on every track, right? It's like that's a great way to put it, like barbershop quartet of rapping, Josh. I like that. But they kind of do the same thing, and if the flow doesn't appeal to you, I could see how it would get tedious. I like the flow personally. In 1995, this was such a unique way of doing rap too, that it stood out so much because nobody sounded like Bone Thugs and Harmony. It was like an alien being kind of coming. But many of the songs, like the first 15 minutes are things like I think like they call me Mr. Bill Collector, and like but smokers only, like Age of Surrender. There's just so many of those like beats that come in and like immediately tag what song you're listening to, and then they recall back to it. And just I love the beats on this album, like the horrorcore, like sort of like spooky, ominous, like gangsta, like supernatural almost. I mean, the themes of this album are like death, murder, supernatural beings, and weed. That's kind of like what those are the four themes, and like it goes between all of these. And so like when you're like 15 years old, right, this stuff is, it's alluring in its own way, right? And it's very Spartan. I just remember in the video, a lot of the video images were like them in front of like a burning garbage can and stuff. It was not gangster rap like living it high. It was like gangster like, oh shit, like he might get shot tomorrow because he's, what I mean? It was like a more raw version of it. And then there's a lot of things like Ouija boards, and sort of like Mo Murder has like a horrorcore. I really have always loved this album. It just is its own thing. It also has by far the best white guy voices of any. There's two specific things, like lie down with your hand behind your back. No, man, you lie your funk ass on the ground. That one, I like. As soon as it was going to hit it, I started laughing to myself because I'm like, I know exactly what's coming right here. And the other is like, I love at the beginning I think is it No Shorts, No Losses. I can't remember what song it is,
Death
but it's
by
the one.
Electric Chair.
The jar. It's like, will the defendant please rise? I sentence you to death. And it always makes me laugh. Like it's like choice, like white guy, like speaking parts too, because it's like it's exactly like the most stereotypical version of a white guy, but in a funny way. So that always makes me laugh too. But this is not a thumbs down for me, Matt. This is a thumbs up for me. This is there is a little bit of nostalgia, but I don't think what's driving this is nostalgia. I just really like this album. I think the beats are choice. The samples on this are choice. There's a lot of like Isley Brothers and like Bootsy's Rubber Band and Earth, Wind and Fire, the dramatic, like just all shit I love along the way. It's part like Eazy-E, but it's part its own thing as well. It just always sort of hits the spot for me. And unfortunately, they kind of like after this, they do like the fucking incredible Notorious Thugs, right, with Biggie, and then the stuff that comes later, like Look Into My Eyes, and the Phil Collins song, not so much. You know what I mean? They kind of tried to do the Wu-Tang thing, and it didn't work as much for them because they're much more. It's much more important for them to be a collective, I think, than it was for Wu-Tang necessarily sound-wise, sonically. And so it kind of lost a little bit. But they always have this one, and this is... I always enjoy listening to this. It is long. I'm not going to say it's not long, but I just think it has enough variety and enough hooks for me to drive me through. So thumbs up on this one. I'm on E1999 Eternal.
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
There you go.